Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown. We're doing predictions for UFC 214, Jones versus Cormier 2. Follow me on Twitter. My link will be in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. And I'll have my predictions up for the following event, UFC Fight Night, Pettis versus Moreno. The link for that will also be in the description, so check that out. First fight on the Fight Pass prelim card at lightweight, Josh Burkman versus Drew Dober. I think this is a terrible fight. Very weird matchup. Two guys who are very inconsistent. I feel that Dober, having youth on his side, having power in his hands, and being able to complete takedowns here and there, I think that should be enough to get him the win here. Burkman's fading, real old, just looked like he didn't belong in there at all. With Prazeres in his last fight, just doesn't look athletically like he can compete at this level anymore. His chin's going. But it was only a year ago when he fought Paul Felder, and I thought he turned in a really nice performance in that fight. I thought he had a strong case for winning the decision in that fight. He was patient on the outside, and then when he got inside, let his hands rip, and he was quicker than Felder with his hands, hit him hard, and made Felder work to defend takedowns against the cage. So if he can put in a performance like that, I know that he has a chance at least to beat Dober, because Dober is still a guy who's inconsistent, who's not all that technical, not a great wrestler, and who can be hurt. Olivier Aubin-Mercier was just obliterating this guy with his jab over and over again. But I can't trust that Burkman's going to put in a good performance like that. Just too old. He's fading too hard. So I have to go with the younger fighter here who's still, who should have the athletic advantages here and who should have the power advantage. So I'm going to go with Dober to win a decision if he doesn't knock out Burkman. But, Dober's still the guy who slipped in the first round against Escudero, gave up his neck, and I don't think that was an accident, really. I think that's more of a tell of Dober being a guy who just falls apart under pressure. So I'll go with Dober, but I think it's a total coin flip, and I'm staying away from this one as far as betting goes. At flyweight, Eric Shelton versus Jared Brooks. Brooks was set to make his debut against Ian McCall a couple cards back, and I actually picked Brooks in that matchup. And that may have been more because I'm not really high on McCall at this point. But for this matchup, analyzing it more, I think that Shelton is really undervalued here, and he is the underdog on the betting lines. But I think Brooks is just, while he is a good, powerful wrestler, he does have knockout power. I think he's a little too limited and one-dimensional in that style of being a wrestle boxer. Shelton should have a big craft and technique advantage on the feet. He has a good jab. He has power in his hands as well. And he's a good wrestler himself. I'm not a guy who was super impressed by his run on Tough, but his fight with Elliott was close. He did get on top of Elliott several points in that fight. He survived against a strong wrestler in Yoni Sherbatov. Got out-wrestled early, but managed to find the back later in the fight and get the sub. And then his fight against Pantoja was also really competitive and did manage to land takedowns, had success on the feet in that fight. And Brooks, while he's a strong wrestler and Shelton can be taken down, he definitely should not be on the same level of grappling as a Pantoja or an Elliott. So I think Shelton's really being written off here. Like I said, on the feet, Shelton should have the advantage. Brooks just kind of wings big haymakers and overhands to close the distance. Shelton's got more technique, and he is a good grappler himself. So I like Shelton here by sub. All right, at women's strawweight, Kylan Curran versus Alexandra Albu. Pretty cut and dry for me. I have to go with Albu. Kylan Curran is kind of the joke of of women's straw weight. She's losing to bad fighters. You know, Jamie Moyle, Alex Chambers in a fight she was dominating, just totally gave away at the end. And even her one win in the UFC against Emily Kagan, she was getting battered in that fight. She just seems like physically she can't compete against shorter, stronger fighters. She often gets bullied in the clinch, gets pushed up against the fence. She has a couple losses by sub to Alex Chambers and Felice Herrig. Albu finished her last fight by sub with an impressive guillotine off of a takedown attempt. And Albu showed sharp, precise strikes in that fight against Badarek. The only thing that I would be concerned about here is that it's been 2.5 years since Albu last fought, which was her UFC debut. So that's something to consider. But otherwise, Albu just seems like the much more skilled fighter to me. Curran has really been struggling against bad competition and hasn't shown any signs of improving. So I like Albu a lot here. I'm going to pick her by, I'll say sub actually. Maybe decision, but definitely going with her. Onto the FXX prelim card, and is that the same channel as FX? Because this is the first I've heard of FXX, and if that's not FX, I'm going to be a little worried because, you know, I don't know what that channel is, if I get it or what, but you guys let me know. I assume that's the same thing as FX. At featherweight, Andre Fili versus Calvin Kattar, another debuting fighter, and I was able to see some of his fights, but nothing recent. I think the most recent fight of his that I was able to see was 4 years old, so I really don't know how he's looked or improved since then, but really doesn't look all that impressive to me, honestly. Looks like an average fighter, and I can't really describe what his game is, what his strengths and weaknesses are. And just going off of that, I have to go with Fili. Well, Kattar seems like he has okay top control, can find his way there. Decent striker, had one fight, I think from 2011, where he ran over the guy in under a minute. But just going off of that, I have to go with Fili, who's been, you know, doing this at a high level for years now. You know, the guy went to the third round against Holloway in a competitive fight. Just picked up a win over Hakran Diaz, who's a credible opponent. Really good at mixing his takedowns and his striking together. And he has fight-ending power as well. Did a good job of timing Gabriel Benitez in their fight to get the TKO win. However, I wouldn't put it past Fili to lose if Kattar is if he happens to be a really powerful, accurate striker. Because we've seen Fili go down to Rodriguez in a fight that he really looked outmatched in. Pepe was able to capitalize on his strength by pulling guard and submitting him in that fight. So Fili can be beat, but I just didn't see anything in the footage, again, the old footage of Kattar, to suggest that he can beat Fili. So I have to go with Fili just based on what I was able to see. So I'll go with Fili by decision. Featherweight, Brian Ortega versus Renato Moicano. Another really weird fight, and one I would stay away from as far as betting goes. I think Moicano should win it because Ortega in that Clay Guida fight just looked like he had a really hard time not only imposing his grappling on Guida, you know, they didn't go to the ground at all, but he was just totally lost and getting outclassed on the feet by Clay Guida. And Guida's been an improving striker, but he shouldn't be getting shut out like that. That's a sign of someone who really lacks any kind of striking skill at the elite, at a high level. And Moicano, he outstruck Jeremy Stevens to win a decision, who is a very, you know, not the most skilled striker, but he is a skilled striker and a very dangerous and powerful one. So that makes me think that Moicano is just going to have a big striking edge here. And he has grappling skills himself. We saw him submit Tom Niinamaki in his debut. So if Ortega gets it to the ground, he could submit him, but I feel like Moicano may be good enough there to survive. I don't know. Just like in that Guida fight where Ortega was just getting shut out and landed that flying knee right at the end of the third round to get the win. In the Diego Brandao fight, similarly, he was down the entire time, struggling to get anything going on the feet, and just forced his way to the ground in that third round to get the sub. He has this knack for finishing the fight last minute when he hasn't been having any success for the entire fight. And he may be able to do that to Moicano, so I just think it's a weird fight, really tough to call, but I just have to go with Moicano because Ortega looks like his lack of striking ability is really catching up to him. He's having trouble imposing that grappling early in fights, so I think this is going to be the fight where it really catches up to him. So I have to go with Moicano by decision, but super close one. Next up, a catchweight fight at 140, Aljamain Sterling versus Renan Barao. Another weird fight. Barao, I think, has looked like a shell of himself since moving up to 145. Sterling, I also think, has regressed ever since that Caraway loss. We're not seeing him get those really impressive early submission wins anymore. I think he's focusing on his technique almost too much, to his detriment. He's trying to be a technical striker, and his hands are just not there. Really relies on kicks more than his hands. But the guy still, fought a really competitive fight against Rafael Sunsao, fought him to a split decision. I thought that easily could have gone his way. I don't know if I would like Barao's chances to do the same thing against the Sunsao. But in this matchup, it really comes down to whether Sterling can impose the wrestling, get the takedowns repeatedly, and I think he can. I think he's a better athlete than Barao, and certainly, the bigger, stronger fighter here, the natural 145er. But if Barao can keep this on the feet, then he can absolutely win. Still the more technical striker, better combination striker, still I think throws with more authority than Sterling, even if relative to who Barao used to be, he's not as confident. But Barao, couldn't do much to hurt Felipe Nover, so I don't know if he's going to hurt Sterling, but then again, Sterling's boxing against Augusto Mendez I thought was pretty weak, and even got staggered by him, I think, at one point in the first round. So really, like I said, a wrestler versus striker matchup, and I have to favor Sterling just being the better athlete. Barao, I think, is a little bit shock-worn, a little bit shell-shocked from those Dillashaw losses, so I'll go with Aljamain Sterling to win by decision. Featherweight, Ricardo Lamas versus Jason Knight. I like Lamas here. I know that Lamas actually opened as the underdog, which was surprising to me, but I understand it, and I have a lot of respect for Knight and the tear he's on. Real scrappy, aggressive dude, just willing to really put himself out there to mix it up. But Lamas, I just think, has the edge technically everywhere in this fight. On the feet, Knight, he's powerful, aggressive, but just lacks the technique that Lamas has. Lamas is still the cleaner, sharper striker, better combination striker, good leg kicks. Watch his Diego Sanchez fight to see, his striking abilities highlighted. And this is a guy who went to the ground with Charles Oliveira, ended up submitting him, a big accomplishment. Knight is really good off of his back. We saw that in the Skelly fight, the Kawajiri fight. But Lamas also should have the wrestling advantage. Knight's a good wrestler as well, has a powerful shot, but Lamas should have the edge. And the biggest thing for me, that gives me confidence that Lamas should survive against Knight is that he went 3 rounds with Max Holloway, took all of his best shots, and was never in danger of being finished. So Knight's got big power, but doesn't have that kind of technique, isn't on that level of striking, and Lamas is just one of the truly elite guys in the division who really hasn't shown signs of slowing down. So I have to go with Lamas by decision. All right, onto the main card at light heavyweight: Jimmy Manuwa versus Volkan Oezdemir. Oh man, Manuwa absolutely deserves to be the favorite on paper here. Really smooth, clean, technical, and very powerful striker. But man, Oezdemir, he's just been on this underdog upset streak for a couple fights now. And granted, his fight against OSP was not at all what Manuwa's fight against OSP looked like. And Serkinov, really kind of ran right into the knockout in that fight. That was kind of like a Verdum Miocic situation, a really bizarre approach. But I don't know. I have to go with Oezdemir, and I can't justify it. I can't explain it. I know it's a sick pick on my part, but he's just been doing it to this point. I feel like he's going to do it all the way to a title shot. So I'm picking Oezdemir. Manuwa, while he's super dangerous, Anderson's got a really weak chin. OSP, not a technical striker. Again, Oezdemir and OSP was pretty competitive, and Oezdemir started to get tagged at the end of that fight in the 3rd round. But Manuwa, I don't know how his game is, going into the 2nd, 3rd rounds. He's gotten these early knockouts, and we haven't seen him go the distance much. Has 1 decision win over Jan Blachowicz. And I just feel like in those later rounds, Oezdemir might have the edge. He's looks like a big, durable guy, a solid kickboxer. I just don't know if Manuwa can... I don't know how he looks, after that 1st round where he's super dangerous, but it's just this gut feeling. I know it's a bad pick, but I just have to go with Oezdemir. It's what I'm feeling in my gut. So I'm going to take Oezdemir, and I'm actually probably going to take him by late knockout. All right, at welterweight, Robbie Lawler versus Donald Cerrone. Cerrone opened and is still the underdog in this fight. And I think he's really being underestimated here. Both guys are shop-worn. Both guys have taken a lot of damage over their previous several fights. But I don't know how you can't argue that Lawler isn't the one who's taken more damage. Between the McDonald, the Condit, and the Woodley knockout. He's just taken so much damage. Cerrone, too. Matt Brown really found his chin and put hands on him. And obviously Masvidal did, but I feel like those guys have really improved they've still been developing as Muay Thai strikers, or at least have been adding more craft to their striking game. And Lawler, I just feel like in the Condit fight and even the Woodley fight, just really got exposed as a pretty basic brawler. Condit touched him with volume and diverse strikes, and was shifting angles on him all fight long, and dropped him and hurt him in that 1st round. And then Woodley, just really exposed his lack of footwork, his lack of a sense of timing to get that 1st round knockout. And Cerrone, while he doesn't have the volume or the diverse array of strikes that Condit had, he's the more technical striker. He'll have the distance management advantage in this fight. And I think he's just going to find an opening for that head kick. Lawler, I really think, is a little too basic at this point. I'm really just looking to land those big overhands. So I think he's going to leave his head vulnerable. Cerrone's going to end it with a head kick knockout, I think either 2nd or 3rd round. And you also think of Cerrone's finish against Story. That was a really technical finishing sequence where he, went to the body and came up top with a head kick all in one sequence. He's a more technical striker than Lawler. And yeah, just given Lawler's all the damage he's taken, I expect him to be physically diminished, more so than Cerrone coming into this fight. So I'm going with Cerrone, but if it's a physically renewed Lawler who can, you know, do what he did in the McDonald fight, just come forward and put volume on Cerrone and keep that pace for 3 rounds, I could certainly see him winning, but I have to go with Cerrone here by head kick knockout. All right, women's featherweight, Chris Cyborg versus Tanya Evinger. Cyborg's the massive favorite, and I have to agree with the lines. Evinger, from the couple of fights of hers that I was able to see, is not a bad fighter. Real gritty and tough, and can drag her opponents to the mat, and from there is really dominant. But Cyborg, just see her having a huge striking advantage. Showed great hand speed in that Leslie Smith fight. Really accurate, powerful, can throw a lot of volume, and I don't see Evinger surviving that. I think she could give Cyborg a tougher fight than Lena Landsberg and maybe Leslie Smith, possibly, but you know, in the end, I just don't see Evinger pulling off the upset. Yeah, I have to go with Cyborg by TKO. Pretty cut and dry for me. All right, at welterweight, for the welterweight title, Tyron Woodley versus Damian Maia. To me, this is a really compelling matchup, and it's my favorite matchup on the card, not because I think the fight's going to be exciting, and I actually think it won't, but I just think it's the most compelling matchup because I think early, Maia's got a big shot to win this, but if this gets into, you know, the third round and on, it really swings in Woodley's favor in a big way. I think physically, you know, this is a bad matchup for Maia. Knowing that he's been able to smother and really impose his grappling game on previously, has had the physical attributes of Woodley. Woodley should be able to sprawl hard when Maia shoots in. He should be really explosive in the pocket. I feel like he could, you know, he can generate big power in short distances, and if Maia shoots in, Woodley could throw something big and separate and reset. I feel like he could do that the entire fight, really, and just be really defensive, and Maia's going to fail on all of his takedown attempts. And, you know, Masvidal, I feel like if he had more time at the end of that first round in his fight against Maia, he would have been able to put him away. You know, he was able to get on top of Maia and started pounding him out. Woodley should be able to do that at some point, I feel, if Masvidal could do it. But early in this fight, you know, Woodley's a slow starter, and he has this horrible habit of backing up to the fence and just circling for the entire fight. And, you know, then late in the fight, I feel that Maia will fade. You know, in the LaFleur fight, he faded hard. That was a 5-round fight. Could barely, you know, keep on his feet in that 5th round. But early in this fight, if Woodley backs up, he's on the defensive, Maia can just go full throttle at him, lunge himself at him, and grab hold and get the back or, you know, get an advantageous position on the ground. I really feel that. So I think this is, you know, really a competitive matchup that could either end by sub early or by Maia, or Woodley drags this out into championship rounds, wins a decision, or gets a late TKO when Maia fades. So really hard for me to tell. Woodley is disappointed before in the McDonald fights, didn't look great in either Thompson fight, especially the second one. And Maia's really incredible at what he's been able to do, which is chase guys down and just stick to them like glue and really impose his grappling and wrestling on him. And I feel he's got a big chance to do that early, just not later in the fight. So could go one of two ways, but I'm going with Woodley here. I think we saw Maia started to break a little bit in that Masvidal fight, and I think Woodley might be the one to finally shut his game down. So Woodley, I'm going to go with Woodley by 5th round TKO. All right, a light heavyweight, Daniel Cormier versus John Jones for the title. A lot of X factors affecting this fight. Jones's layoff, not just his layoff since the OSP fight, but the guy hasn't really been an active fighter for 2.5 years since he fought Cormier the last time. And also just all of the drama with Jones, you know, the arrests and the drugs, and just lost his mother. So that could all, you know, negatively affect him. But this might be a stupid thing to judge on, but in all of the promotional material I've seen, Jones looks comfortable. Looks like he's in a good spot with his head, and physically looks really good, looks really in shape. For me, the matchup skill-wise is the same, you know, as the first time. I don't know that Cormier's really improved on anything significantly or has added a new tool that he can use to beat Jones. And you know, the first fight, Cormier tried to knock out Jones and he couldn't do it. If Jones shows up rusty, certainly I think Cormier could, he has a chance of putting him away, having more success with his hands and hurting Jones than he did in the first fight. But I still think Jones is just too durable, and we haven't seen him ever really put in serious danger, so I think that method is not a viable path to victory for Cormier. In the first fight, he had no success wrestling Jones. You know, took him down once, but before he could even fall him to the ground, Jones popped right back up. I don't think Cormier is now going to be able to out-wrestle Jones for 5 rounds. So that really leaves Cormier with one option, I think, and that's just to try to fight really composed, really stick to his fundamentals and just try to outwork Jones for a decision. But I think Cormier is not, he doesn't have his emotions in check enough to do that. He fought really emotionally in that first fight, and while he made it competitive, wasn't able to hurt Jones, and by the championship rounds was gassed a little bit, and that's when Jones was able to take him down. And I think that's the same thing we're going to see here. You know, Cormier has mentioned in the lead up that he wants to knock out Jones, you know, go after him and really end the fight. And I believe that he's going to fight that way because, you know, the guys hate each other. Cormier's very emotional, and Jones is just the more level-headed fighter here. I think it could be even more competitive than the first matchup, but like I said, I don't see Cormier knocking him out. I don't see him out wrestling Jones for 5 rounds. So I just think Jones is going to hang on and just slightly edge Cormier again and get the decision. So I have to go Jones by decision. But again, super close fight, or, you know, tough fight to call because of the layoff and all the things that have been affecting Jones in his personal life. Could Jones come in looking really rusty? Maybe. Didn't look great in the OSP fight. So, yeah, but Jones is my pick to win by decision. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC 214. Cormier versus Jones 2. Follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description. I'll have a link there for my prediction video for Pettis versus Moreno, the following event. And I will also have my UFC 214 betting video up as well, so check that out. Thank you guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.